Okay guys, so this is the kit that's been supplied by Simply Splitcharge. Go check them out in the link in the description. They supply the majority of our 12 volt needs when we're doing conversions for customers. So within the kit, they give you literature with diagrams of how to install your split charger, or voltage sensitive relay as they're also known. Clear instructions detailed out what you need to do. This is a pro kit. They do made up kits, so you don't have to worry about soldering or clamping or crimping new terminals. They give you everything ready to go, essentially a plug and play. As I said, this is a pro kit, so we ask for what we need and we get all the components separate, so we can custom build all the wiring to suit the van that we're working on. So in this case, we'll get a selection of heat shrink tubes for the 60mm square cable that we're going to be working on. Some cable tie mounts, mounting cable to the wall to be screwed, and then cable tie 2 for cable management. 100 amp strip fuses. These go into the fuse holders that are supplied with the kit. Some foam backing pads, again for fixing. A selection of black screws and a 2mm, 2.5mm drill bit. A selection of crimp terminals relating to hole size for 16mm square cable in this case, plus a few other terminals, ring terminals and bits for the earths. Plenty of cable ties to work with to cable manage properly. 16mm square cable rated 110 amp, as well as the same size cable for your earth straps that run from leisure battery through to your chassis. Positive and negative battery post terminals for your leisure battery. And your strip fuse holders that go close as it can to your starter battery and as close to your VSR on the outside towards your leisure battery. And of course the all important kit. In this case, this is the Merlin MPower voltage sensitive relay. This is what clicks in and clicks out the charging to allow power to be passed from your starter battery through to your leisure battery. It has a connecting volt and a disconnecting volt. So when the voltage, after you've turned off your engine, drops to 12.8 volts, this will then disconnect. When your engine battery is pushing 13.3 volts supplied via your alternator, this will connect and start pushing power through to your leisure battery. This MPower kit has the ideal numbers. Dualite, which is a very common go-to, they changed their configuration. The dropout on disconnect is a lot lower, so your split charge will continue to pull charge from your battery for longer once the engine's turned off. In this case, the cutout will be sooner. So what we'll do is we'll have a look at where we're going to mount this kit and how we're going to terminate these cables. I've done it in other videos you would have seen. You can check back on those about crimping, cable management, and what you should do where. So let's get to it. Okay, so for the T25 T3 diesel engines, you'll find the starter battery mounted in the lower right hand corner of the bay. Within the petrol engines, you will find them under the driver's seats. So in this case, this makes things a lot easier for us for where we want to be installing the split charge relay, along with where the battery is going, which will be under the rock and roll bed. So for the old circuit, the old system that was installed, you can see here we have this blue cable that's on top. This blue cable then runs through to what was an old-fashioned, effectively, relay. This relay would open up and then feed power from this cable up through this hole and then run down the van to the leisure battery. So what we're effectively doing is removing this old kit and replacing it with a voltage sensing relay, which is a far more efficient setup than what the van currently has. Okay, so we want to get rid of this old relay, so we need to disconnect this blue cable here, which as you can see isn't even tight. So I can't stress enough to everybody, please check your cabling, check your wiring. This can now be disconnected from the relay. We have a cable that feeds from the relay to the alternator. That needs to be disconnected also. There's also the earth, which is bolted to the chassis from the relay. Disconnected. Disconnect the old relay. I mean, that's not great. That's the old charging system. I don't know how old it is, whether it's from factory, whether it's retrofitted, not ideal. I can't imagine it's factory if you've got exposed cable like that that's taped. Check your cabling. This can now be fed back through and taken away from the engine bay completely. And as I say, guys, get in touch with us. We don't mind having a look at your van. We don't mind checking your cabling out. We don't mind making sure that everything's terminated correctly and safely. You can't take chances. You know, just the other week, Volkswagen T4 went up in flames. Although it was from the van's fuse area, but obviously there was a cabling issue somewhere, and the van's caught fire, and it's lost. So check your cabling. You know, it's not just fuel lines that corrode and send fuel everywhere, setting your van on fire. Electrical fires are a big one as well. Okay, let's check out the routing for the cable. So our split charge circuit will start with the positive terminal of the starter battery here. Its first point of termination will be the inline 100 amp strip fuse, and that has to be within 30 centimeters of the starter battery. So we'll run the cable around the back of the battery, add a strip fuse holder, and then from the other side of the strip fuse holder we'll then continue round the back and go through this hole, out through into the back of the rock and roll bed when it's installed, because that's where the leisure battery will be. So let's get that cable made up. Okay, so that's the first cable made up. This is going to go from the starter battery to the inline strip fuse holder. Actually popped on for now. The other side of the strip fuse holder will go out to the voltage sensitive relay. So yeah, I don't need to show you making up the cables. You can check back on our other videos. I'll leave a link in the description, or perhaps up in the right hand corner here, for making up cables if you haven't bought a ready-made kit. So now we can look and get that posted into the engine bay. Okay, so we've got our cable here. This end is going to attach into our starter battery terminal, and the other end I've already made another cable. This will go here. As I've just said, don't add the fuse. Leave the fuse out until you're ready to add the fuses. We don't want any of this to be live right now. The only part that's going to be live, as said, is this cable here. And with this now closed up and protected, nothing is going to interfere with this cable being live, because this end will be at the post, only going into this box that nothing else can get to. So I just want to feed this cable into here. leave our fuse holder behind. That can float, it's not a problem. And now I can look at routing the rest of the cable up the van. What I will do is I will also add, as ever, the corrugated plastic sleeve into this. I just want to get my routing done first and then the cabling added after. The protection for the cabling added after. Cool. So the cable now runs across the back here, down between the battery and the tray, around the back of the wash bottle, around the back of the fuel filter, in through to the back of the engine bay, and that will come out the other side into where the base of the rock and roll bed will be. We can now get this screwed up, fixed, safe and secure, so it's not flapping around. So we could use the sticky pad from the cable tie mount, but to be fair, sticky isn't going to last very long, is it? So a screw added gives a much more secure connection. We can now add the cable to the mount and cable tie. Good. So this is now, rather than just using a sticky pad that's supplied with these cable tie brackets, mounts, I've added a screw also. So now it's not going anywhere. There's no chance of it flapping around, interfering with anything over time. That'll be there forever and a day. So that completes the management part. Nice and secured, tied in. That now goes through the bulkhead, and then we'll now feed down into the area where the rock and roll bed sits. So we can now look at terminating the cable to the voltage sensitive relay, then out the other side, as said before, to a fuse box, then onto the leisure battery. Okay, so the split charge relay is going to live on this wall here. So our cabling has been fed through the firewall, will run through here, round the back of the wall, be terminated into the split charge relay. From there we'll have a second cable out to a fuse, then onto the battery. As you've seen in the other videos, when we're making up our battery cables and split charge cables, etc., we'll have a pair of cutters to be able to prepare our cable. We'll have a crimper that we use for our copper tube terminals, smash down on top, secures the crimp, and of course heat shrink to go around the terminal for that extra protection from moisture. So this is the split charge relay we're going to use. This is an MPower voltage sensitive relay, it's supplied by Merlin. We get ours from Simply Split Charge, and so go check those guys out. As you can see here, we have the connecting volt of 13.3, so when the starter battery is pulling 13.3 volts from the alternator, then this circuit will open and a 12.8 volt disconnect. So when the starter battery drops below 12.8 volts, the relay will switch out and stop charging the leisure battery. If you open up the back, what we have is a cable here. This is an earth, and included in the pack is a ring terminal that goes to the earth here, and then that gets put to the body of the van or gets put through to your leisure battery negative. What we also have are 6mm post, two of which are perfect for our 6mm hole copper tube terminals. GC 16-6, 16, as before I've said before on videos, is the size of the hole, 16mm square, because that's the size of the cable we're using, and 6 is for the 6mm hole. Simple process. Screw them on, lock them down, all's well. So what we have also are these little areas here we're able to chop in, cut out and feed our cables through to whichever way best suits your application. So yeah, Merlin MPower, go check them out at Simply Split Charge. They're a top bit of kit, and in our opinion much better than the dual right systems. Cheers. So of course we want to secure our cable down in places, so what we're using here are some cable clips. You can get various sizes, various types. We're using these today, and it's a case of feeding around the cable, screw through, and that completes. That should be plenty now to feed our earth strap through, and also the cable from the starter battery. We can now look to make either another hole from the sides to go out to the battery, but in this case, thinking about it, I think I'm just going to make this hole larger. So we'll have the two cables coming out along with the earth. I think that'll work nice. Something like so. Plenty big enough for the two cables and the earth. So in the case of the earth, this earth with this ring terminal, that will be fed through, crimped down with our ratchet crimpers. That's nice and secure now. That can now go onto the post on our bus bar that we're going to have running. Tighten this 13mm up, and then that is the cable that's running from our leisure battery into our relay. This side then feeds out to the battery. What we do need to bear in mind is this cable is going to be cut again, because we need to add a strip fuse in. The strip fuse is a 100 amp inline strip fuse, and that needs to be within 30 centimeters of the battery terminal, which will be here. So do bear that in mind. Within 30 centimeters you need to have a strip fuse from your battery, your leisure battery, and the same at the other end in your starter battery. Within 30 centimeters of the starter battery, another 100 amp strip fuse. Okay, so this is a strip fuse holder. Probably seen them before in other videos we've done. And we have a 6mm post. Feed on our terminal. Leave it on lightly. And then the same with our other end. Again, just screwing it on lightly, and then we can add in our strip fuse. This is a 100 amp strip fuse. That can feed in. And button them down, and then we can tighten them up. When we're using an 8mm spanner, just going to crack those up a little bit. We can close, locking the lid, and that's that part of the circuit complete. I'll say it 1,000 times. I am I'm not a qualified electrician, my work is checked, but if your cabling doesn't look anything like this, get the correct tools, get the knowledge and the know-how to be able to do it. Safe electrics is absolutely paramount. Okay, so that's pretty much the split charge system installed. What we have here is our black earth. That will be fixed into a 12 volt negative bus bar. We also have the 16mm square cable on the positive post of the leisure battery. That cable is fed round into our strip fuse holder, 100 amp strip fuse holder. That is then fed up into our split charge relay, out of the split charge relay down to behind here, cable secured, ran through back into the engine bay. You'd have seen obviously at the beginning of the video where we have terminated that split charge system into the engine bay. That essentially is it. Providing you've got a strong connection with your starter battery, you then feed that into a 100 amp strip fuse within 30 centimeters of the starter battery. Your 16mm square cable is then carried on through the van. It then enters into our split charge relay, out of our split charge relay into another 100 amp strip fuse. That is again within 30 centimeters of our leisure battery. Add an earth. Once the earth's in, you could then fire up your engine, and on the front, if all is well, you'll get a red light appear. If after 5 or 10 seconds this red light has not appeared, then you have an issue with voltage or earthing, so you'll need to get those checked. But the red light should appear when the engine starts. Obviously it's not going to, because nothing's earthed, the engine isn't running. I have some finishing off to do, but I just wanted to give you the idea of running your split charge system. So yes, if you have a red light, you'll even hear it click. It will click in and it will click out. It will click in when it starts, and it will click out when the engine's turned off and it's dropped below 12.8 volts. So excellent bit of kit. As I said, Merlin MPower kit. You can get it from Simply Split Charge, and well worth investing if you're looking to charge your leisure batteries while on the go for your T25s. Once again, thanks very much for watching. Do subscribe to the channel, do hit the thumbs up, even comment. It all helps, and a thumbs up does encourage YouTube to recommend our videos to other people. So the more exposure out there we can get, the better. As I said, thanks very much for watching. We'll catch up with you soon. Appreciate it.